Welcome to Inspiring Kids to Be Kind with Kind News, everybody. My name's Heidi Colonna, and I'm Kind News writer and editor. I'm thrilled to present Kind News and the Adopt a Classroom program to you today with our partners at Napa Humane and Beesley Animal Foundation. We'd like to start by introducing our Kind News team and do a quick review of what Red Rover is for those of you who are new to us. So Red Rover brings animals from crisis to care and strengthens the bond between people and animals through these three main areas. Emergency sheltering and disaster relief with the Red Rover Responders Program, financial assistance for pet owners, and help with domestic violence shelters becoming pet friendly with the Red Rover Relief Program. And finally, why we're here today is our education work, not only through Kind News, but Red Rover readers. And here in this photo on the right, Minhan is holding a humane-themed picture book for our empathy program called Red Rover Readers, and she'll give a quick introduction of that at the end before we leave. So as I said, I'm Heidi, and I started out about 30 years ago working in animal sheltering as a volunteer for my local Massachusetts SPCA. I was a vet tech and quickly gravitated toward humane education through my studies at the Center for Animals and Public Policy at Tufts University. I am a certified teacher as well and have been on the board of the Association of Professional Humane Educators several years back. Amelia here will be co-moderating with me, and she's spent about 20 years in education, starting in the Virginia public schools, and now oversees Kind News production. And she has a special eye for our Kind News teacher guides and works in partnership with countless animal care and control organizations to bring Kind News all around the country. Minhan is our program manager, and she's going to take care of all the technical aspects of the webinar today, including some poll questions. Her experience is in animal care and sheltering, and her studies at UC Davis were focused on humane education and animal science. She is a certified humane education specialist. So our goal today is to offer a lot of tips and conversation about bringing Kind News to your community. Along those lines, I'm going to turn it to Amelia to introduce our guest panelists.
Thank you so much, Heidi. So our first panelist is Katie Peachey, and Katie lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee with her husband, her 13-year-old son, who, by the way, has been a Kind News humane hero, and their cat, Carrot. With a Bachelor of Social Work from MTSU, she brings 7 years of experience to her role as Grant and Marketing Administrator at Beesley Animal Foundation. Her work encompasses event planning, grant writing, volunteer coordination, and social media outreach, all aimed at advancing affordable, responsible pet care throughout Middle Tennessee. Alyssa Vincent is a certified dog trainer with over 15 years of experience working with dogs and other species. She offers public dog training classes and community presentations on safe pet interactions as a humane education program manager at Napa Humane. Alyssa has gained much of her expertise from managing dogs and staff at a dog daycare and leading a behavior team at a high-volume shelter. Passionate about animal behavior, she enjoys sharing her knowledge with pet owners and the community to help animals stay in their homes. Welcome to both of our wonderful panelists. We're going to just give you a quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to start by with a couple little trivia questions for those of you who may be familiar with Kind News, and just for fun, Minhan's going to be putting those in Mentimeter, and she'll show you that in one moment. And then we will talk about what Kind News is for those who are not familiar with it yet, and what our Adopt a Classroom program is very briefly, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists to hear their take on Kind News. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Minhan for the first trivia question.
Thanks, Amelia, and hi again, everyone. So our first question, actually, before we get started, so how Mentimeter works is you can tune in from your phone. So if you do have your phone handy, you can go ahead and scan the QR code that is in the upper right-hand corner of the screen share that I have up that says Kind News Trivia, has Kermit and Cookie Monster there. You can also join by using your browser. So join at menti.com and then enter the code. So I'll give you all just a moment to join us.
Not required, it's just for fun. So if you don't want to go out of your browser or out of Zoom, you don't have to do that.
Okay, so the first trivia question is, in what year was Kind News first published? Your options are 1983, 1992, or 2005. Looks like we've got a few votes in and it's tied. Oh, now we've got 1992, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. A lot leaning toward 1992. We've got a couple for the other years. So it's actually 1983. So Kind News was first published in 1983. Okay, for our second poll question, who first published Kind News? ASPCA, Best Friends, HSUS, or MSPCA? Okay, we've got one for ASPCA, a couple for HSUS, one for Best Friends. Okay, ASPCA seems to be the top choice. Oh, we've got MSPCA. For HSUS. Last call. All right, so HSUS actually first published Kind News, and Red Rover came through and adopted Kind News from the Humane Society of the US in 2017. Hey, thank you all for joining us for that interactive component. I'll go ahead and pass the mic back over to Heidi, who will go over Kind News.
Interesting, the takes on the Kind News history. So one little fun fact, Amelia, I'm sorry, Minhan, I wonder if you could pull up our November, December issue so I can go through Kind News. But one little fun fact about Kind News's history is that Amelia and I both worked with it at the Humane Society of the United States. It was first published in their youth education division in southeastern Connecticut, and I started working with it in 2002 down in southeastern Connecticut. So to explain Kind News to everybody, I would love to just do a quick run through of our current issue. We're really excited. This is hitting classrooms right now, starting last week. It's our November, December issue. And if you wouldn't mind to start flipping, Minhan, hopefully everybody will hear the pages turn. This is our digital issue. This is just for illustration purposes. Kind News is a print resource, but this is what teachers get through their email as an extra to show students on screens like smartboards and laptops. And there's this great little read aloud feature, which is nice for reluctant readers. Not only does Kind News have short articles, lots of pictures, all about animals, but teachers and students themselves can hit the play buttons above the articles and have it read along, which is really nice for the reluctant readers. So every issue of Kind News has a pet corner on the left there, you'll see, which is all about ways to better care for our pets, ways to enrich life for dogs and cats. Sometimes we'll do things on all kinds of pets, hamsters, what habitat should your hamster have? In this issue, we did a quick story on the fear-free philosophy and how animal workers are using animals' body language to determine how they're reacting and working with animals. And this is something we are constantly hitting on in Kind News, is how young people can understand what pets are telling us through their body language and how they can respond in friendship. Every issue of Kind News has at least one role model, and that's in our Humane Hero article here is Jenna Repich, who's from a volunteer at Lollipop Farm in New York, and she is, as you can see, a rat and mouse person, and she brings these animals to the camp there at Lollipop Farm. She's done education work herself through the camp and through a video she made with Lollipop Farm, and she's been on the news and is a perfect example of a humane hero. If you could turn the page, Minhan, we're going to look at our feature story on the animal shelter slumber potty. This was a really nice way to show the role of animal shelters to young people and what volunteers do in a real kid-friendly way, going through the step-by-step of 24 hours overnight in an animal shelter with a past humane hero, Olivia Smith there, who works with Humane Society of Marlborough County. On the next page, in every issue of Kind News, we always have an activity. Crosswords are very popular with kids still. Every time I go into a classroom or sit with a kid, they go right for this activity. They want to grab their pen or pencil and fill it in. They don't want to just be reading. And while our focus is pets at Red Rover, we do include wild animals. We include farmed animals and horses very frequently in Kind News. We want kids to understand and appreciate all animals. And for the most part, we focus on North American wildlife kids are likely to see in this country or hear about. See if you can guess our critter clue on the bottom right there, an animal, very adaptable animal, very family-oriented animal. That is the coyote. If you could turn to the last page, I know this is very quick, but we do a To the Rescue where we always have another role model for kids in terms of someone, usually it's an animal care and control worker doing a rescue. In this case, Micah the bison, rescued from Washington State and brought to Black Beauty Ranch in Texas with the HSUS. And I also want to point out we always do kind questions at the end of every story to get kids thinking about how they're feeling and put themselves in the shoes of the animals. I should say in the place of the animals. And this brings me to why teachers, some of the reasons teachers like Kind News, other than the reading and the current events aspect of it, the science aspect of it, is the social and emotional learning that we cover in every issue. So with the Humane Hero stories, we're always recovering responsible decision making, social awareness, of course, with what's happening with animals around the country and the world. And then that self-awareness piece through this questioning. How are you feeling? For example, in this kind question, think about a time when you were taught something new that you can still do or remember. What did the person teaching you do to help you be successful? And how did you feel as you were learning it, along the lines of how the pets are feeling when they're learning? At this point, I think we can go to what is included, but I first want to mention, before we get back to our slides, that Kind News is not a curriculum, it's a supplemental resource, very much like a junior scholastic magazine. Years ago, there was a weekly reader that was very popular. So teachers can use this in their classes, in their literacy classes, with science lessons. They can give it during free reading time, and they can send it home. And most teachers do send it home so that siblings and families can benefit and read the Kind News at home. So we're going to go back to our slides and show what a classroom gets when they have a Kind News subscription. So any teacher can purchase Kind News for their classroom for $30 for the school year. They get 28 print copies of the magazine every other month. That's 5 months during the school year. Depending on what grade they're in, they'll get the grades K through 2 junior edition or the regular edition that I just went through. They will get a teacher's guide, which is in the middle there, with discussion questions for the class and activity ideas and a special book that relates to the issue, a book review. I do want to note Kind News can be purchased for home use, I should say, by parents, grandparents, and guardians, and they get just one issue with a home guide, and that's $10. But the real reason we're here today is to talk about Adopt a Classroom. So on our next slide, we have some of our partners who work with us to bring that funding and identify classrooms in their communities to bring Kind News, so that Kind News is no cost to teachers. And for the most part, that's how Kind News is received around the country by teachers. HSUS before us and Red Rover now has always made Kind News very accessible, very reasonably, and it's very reasonable for organizations. I just want to mention one comment from someone who couldn't be with us, from Prince William SPCA. President Alyssa has told us that they didn't have the staff to visit classrooms or create material, so Kind News was a great way to reach a lot of children for a very reasonable cost. And at this point, I think it's time to turn it over to our speakers to ask them some questions and let them chime in on how Kind News has worked in their own communities. And there's Melissa there. And just want to let everybody know we will be watching the time pretty carefully since we only have an hour. So we may be giving our guest panelists little high signs about the time. So our first question, I think we decided we'll start with Katie from Beesley. Welcome, Katie. We wonder if you could explain kind of your situation in Middle Tennessee with Beesley and why you all decided to bring Kind News to your schools.
Yes, thank you for having me. We love Kind News and the fact that Beesley Animal Foundation has been able to bring it to schools throughout Middle Tennessee for almost 20 years. We are still trying to figure out exactly when we first started doing this. For our foundation, we promote kindness, respect, and responsibility through all of our programs. And so we were trying to find something that fit into our educational program. We have our director and some volunteers that will go into the classroom and talk about pet wellness and promoting kindness, respect, responsibility. And this was a great addition for us to be able to reach more, like you said, the person who couldn't be here, that quote, because we wanted to have something tangible that the kids could kind of hold on to. We felt like it wasn't just something they read and it was gone. So we were able to do these classroom sponsors and have different schools throughout Rutherford and Cannon County receive the publication, talk about it in class, take it home, talk about it with their siblings, their parents, and have conversations. And one thing I do remember our director, when she was talking about this some time ago, we do I guess the regular edition, not the junior. We do the fourth, fifth, sixth, and we kind of target fourth and fifth graders mostly, because we felt like they could take the information and then share it. Sorry, I don't want to go over, but just to be able to have that information and to share it. And so we have 136 classrooms currently in 15 schools that receive Kind News, the fourth, fifth, and sixth edition.
So cool. Thank you, Katie, for sharing. And that's perfect timing. Alyssa, would you like to chime in about Napa Humane and how you all decided to bring it?
Sure. We are an interesting humane society in that we don't have a shelter facility, and we did initially for the first 25 years, and the last 25 years we haven't. And one of our biggest missions is helping helping the pets in our community stay in their homes and helping those folks be able to keep them. And one of the biggest things that we were realizing was it's not just about spaying and neutering and vaccines. It's also partly about educating our community. And one of those ways we felt like we could help impact the community was educating through the children. So that's where we started utilizing Kind News. And similar to what Katie was saying, we have kind of focused on our fifth grade students. We send to all of the schools in our county and our district the fifth grade class across the board, and then we've opened it up to other teachers in the district and basically had it as request. And we get quite a few teachers in different classes and different schools that request it, and we do also the junior edition and the regular edition. And I go to classrooms and do presentations, and the kids are very knowledgeable, and they do talk about the things that they read in their Kind News subscription. Talking to the different teachers, there are teachers who have it in their classroom as sort of a supplemental reading, and then there are teachers that use it as part of their curriculum. So we found in our district that the teachers really quite often utilize the information. When I come to classrooms, I can see it over in their little reading nook and things. So I can see that they have it out and available to the students when they do have it. But we really believe that if we can educate the next generation of pet owners and folks entering the pet industry, we're going to get that ripple effect. And being one of those kids who was interested in picking up any book or magazine that had an animal on the front, this is something that as soon as I realized we were doing it when I started here about 2 years ago, it excited me because I knew I would have been that kid that gravitated towards that. And kids don't have the same, Animal Planet that I had when I grew up, right? So making sure that these kids in these classrooms have the access to this information as they want to seek it out, and really starting conversations around that. So if we don't hit every kid in every classroom, they're going to ripple effect to their friends and to their friends in different situations and scenarios. And so we really love that we're impacting the community, and then hopefully those kids are impacting their own communities when they get to access Kind News.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I wonder if you could comment on the number of classrooms you reach and what areas around your organization.
Well, we reach a lot. What I would say is this, in the last 2 months, I've probably presented at about 5 schools, and based on we have registration going, I'm on track to present to about 500 kids by the end of December for our in-person presentations. But I think we had I mean, Minhan would know because she had to help me type all of our subscriptions
So
in.
it's close to 100 classrooms right now, Alyssa. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very high number.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is great. We're going to move on to the next question. So we have a little more time for the later ones where we get a little more in depth. We're going to start with Alyssa on this one. What is one effective method you use to identify potential schools for Kind News, Alyssa?
So I think one of the biggest ways that our community knows about us is from the fact that we're going into schools to do our classroom presentations. But essentially what I do towards the end of each school year is I email all of the teachers in our district. And what I've been doing is just sending them a form and saying, hey, this is what Kind News is. Here's a link to the website. If you are interested in ordering, tell me what your class is, like what your class grade level is, and how many students you're thinking you'll have. And then the teachers can request, we explain to the teachers, it's a free resource to you. If you're interested in, we'd be happy to send it to you. We just need to know that information. And then that way they can go ahead and they just send an online form response. In the past, we've done physical forms that we've passed out to the school administration, and then they can pass it off to their teachers. But I found, our teachers are so busy. Once I switched things to just the online form that they could just, answer a few questions and respond back to, that's been the best way we've gotten a response. So we basically just give the teachers some information about the service and then allow them to reach back to us about who's interested.
Nice. What about you, Katie, in Tennessee?
For us, we are located in Rutherford County, and a neighboring county, Cannon County, is one of the ones that we also reach out to and provide services. We kind of joke that for us, we don't have really limits on who comes to us for service because pets don't know boundaries and we don't either. So we make sure that Cannon County, that all of their schools always receive Kind News. They're a very rural county and they don't have a shelter. They don't have animal control for their county, and are limited on other organizations because we see a big part of this being how to be mindful and provide pet wellness and the responsibility that comes along with that. And so we really want to make sure that that we are hitting those schools. And so that means I believe that there's 3 schools, again, not very large, but rural and just fewer resources. So we also have a unique situation for Tennessee that I realize not everyone has. So for us, the publications kind of go through a process to get into the schools. So that is something that you might look for just to see who can receive the publications through different curriculum and standards. Sorry, I was looking at my notes to make sure I said it right. But we have just tried to grow. If we were doing 4th grade classes at a school, just to, like Alyssa was saying, that ripple effect to make sure we're reaching more, we've done 4th and 5th grade classrooms. And so broadening that a little bit and just seeing how many we can add each year with funding is on another part. We would love to provide it to every school in the city and county, and we're just not there yet with funding resources.
One thing I just want to add from Alyssa along the lines of having something online where teachers can sign up. Melissa at Prince William SPCA also has a form online and that they share with teachers, and they find that teachers will share that amongst themselves, which is really nice. And teachers will spread the word if they like it. They now sponsor 500 subscriptions, reaching 13,000 students from all that word of mouth and and signing up, easy signing up online. And thankfully, they're able to have fundraising events and community outreach to provide a lot of that funding. So we can get into more of that piece in later questions. If there's nothing else we missed, anything else to add on that question before we move on? All right, we can go right on to the next. And this one will start with Katie. What benefits have you observed in classrooms, the broader community, or community relationships?
I would say that when we are talking to a group of kids and we can do the in-person, the conversations and the little side chats that Kind News will help promote. I mean, oh, I have a cat at home, and just getting those discussions going. When we're there, I know that it's great that we can hear it, and the teachers, I guess, love seeing the interaction and how they're, talking about what's going on in Kind News and in their home life. And even being able to answer questions if they don't know what's going on or they've never seen a hamster or just different things in the publication. We really have enjoyed having that, again, the tangible publication, but we also like the digital, being able to share that just to get people excited. I've made a note, Alyssa, that y'all have the online form. That is brilliant to have that. Also must save a lot if you get an email wrong, which happens when you have very odd district emails and letters and whatever. So we have used the digital Kind News to send it to teachers, to schools, to see if, hey, is this something you'd like? Because when you talk about it, the descriptions on the Kind News website are great, but being able to share that even with the adults and principals and the administration to see if this is something that we can bring to the schools is nice. I do love the read along parts, just having all of those different aspects of the publication. I really can't say how much I love that it's something that's that we can offer, and it's not expensive. And I will say that teachers, I know for me, the teacher friends that I have, classrooms, it gets expensive as little things add up. And this is a resource and something that they aren't necessarily, they don't have the funds. It's not covered in some of their curriculum, and it's something that we can add to for them. And then they can, take it and lead the discussions. And we really are glad that we have this as a part to offer and to get the feedback. I love getting the pictures of the kids reading Kind News sitting on the rugs. So yeah.
Yeah, those letters and pictures back, and even when the kids do drawings, that's the best. All right, Alyssa, what have you seen in your county?
So I've seen, each time I start my presentations, one of the things I ask is, who doesn't have any animals? And then I go through, okay, who has this, who has that, who has this? And so it's really, I think the Kind News, it's going to be something that all of the kids gravitate towards. But I think those kids that don't have pets at home really gravitate towards these kinds of, being able to grab it and go read it off to themselves in the corner. What I really like is when I'm asking simple things, asking about, I had a presentation last week and we're asking about the difference between cats' feet and dogs' feet and claws and things. And these kids were throwing out, before I realized it was one of our classrooms that had Kind News, they were throwing out all of these little tips and things that they things that they already knew. And, the whole classroom was participating. It wasn't, sometimes you're in a classroom and one or two kids really know all the things, but it was the entire classroom that was like, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, it's this. So you're getting so much more interaction from the kids about it, and their confidence about the fact that they already know some of this information. It's just great to see their little faces like brighten up, and they get really excited. And sometimes they'll all kind of turn around and look at their teacher like, oh, we all know this one, and then they have those answers. So we've really definitely noticed a difference in that. And we host a low-cost vaccine clinic on Fridays, and our clinic team has noted that kids will tell them, oh, I get this magazine, or I've read this thing in class. And so the kids will talk about it. If you strike up the right kind of conversation, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I read that, or I saw that in my thing at school. So we've definitely noticed that the kids really retain the information in it. And in some of our older classrooms, the kids are more on their tablets or their laptops in class, and the younger kids aren't doing that as much. So I think having that tangible item has been really great for them, and they can grab it and sit together and look at something. But I think it's been a really great resource for our teachers to be able to have, again, to implement either as part of their curriculum, or have something as an extra for when kids, finish tasks ahead of time, or just looking for something to read and take a look at. But I think it's also been great to open up, even just as a conversation opener with some of our educators and our administrative, folks in the community. And even though we've been doing this for a really long time, I mean, I was at a school the other day and they saw me walking. I carry a fake dog with me when I do my presentations, and admin will step out and go, wait, who are you and what's that? And oh my gosh, the kids must love it. And so being able to remind them that we're here and this is what we do, and they have this resource already available to them, is a great way to just kind of go back towards that conversation of the more education we can give these kids, the safer they're going to be around animals, and also the more likely these animals are going to be to stay in their homes. And we're at a huge industry shortage in the animal care community, so if we can help these kids learn some stuff before they hit the industry, and it's really going to help broaden relationships across animal care entirely.
I'm glad you brought up careers. In our January, February issues, when we normally touch on animal careers, and this coming January, February, we're doing veterinarian and vet tech. And so I'm excited about that. So kids will read about career possibilities as well in Kind News. All right, let's check our timing. Is it time to go on to the next question? And
Heidi, can I
yes.
interject and share just one little tidbit? We had one panelist who was really excited to be here, Carol Edwards of Voice for Animals, and due to a family illness, she wasn't able to, but she said, I would love it if you would share this, because she's so passionate about humane education. And she said she had learned about they work on the seacoast area of Maine and New Hampshire. So she said, I learned about a town in Maine that had a lot of documented animal abuse. It was decided that intensive humane education should be begun there. Over time, the numbers changed. Children came to learn about animals and their behaviors changed, and as well as those of their family. I believe this is powerful evidence that education can truly, truly foster humane treatment of animals. So she just, Carol was a special ed teacher, and she just feels so strongly that if you actually talk to kids and teach them and bring them resources, that they're going to naturally get excited and gravitate towards animals and have empathy for them. I just really wanted to make sure everyone heard a little piece of her perspective, since she couldn't be here, and she was really bummed about that. So
thank you for sharing, Amelia. Very important. If it's okay with Katie and Alyssa, we'll move on to the next question. And just want to remind everybody to put questions in as we go. And if you are part of Kind News Adopt a Classroom program, I know some of you are as well. I would love your take on some of these questions as well. We might be able to share when we have time at the end of our questions. All right, and so now we're starting with on question 4, moving on quickly, starting with Alyssa on this one. What advice would you give to other animal organizations looking to bring Kind News to their communities?
I would reach out, and start the conversation in whatever way is attainable. I know it's not always simple. I mean, being somebody who doesn't have children and isn't in the schools naturally, being able to send information over from Napa Humane. I think one of the biggest things that has started the conversation, or at least opened folks' ears, in our instance, is that we start the conversation with, this is a free thing that we're offering to you. And I know that that is not something that every organization is going to have the opportunity to do, but as I think Katie was mentioning, talking to the teachers, and the cost of everything just continues to add up. And, especially the closer you get to the school year, these folks they're overwhelmed already. And so letting them know that this is a resource that is available to them, that is easy for them, that all we need is their information, and we'll get it to them, and they can do with it whatever they want to, or add it to their curriculum however they want to, I think is a great way to start that conversation, just making it as low barrier for entry to them as possible. I think if you have the opportunity to have an in-person conversation, bringing some of the kind news with you and just kind of allowing them to flip through it and take a look at it is another great way to start. But even if you don't necessarily have the opportunities to get into the classroom specifically, there are some of these schools that have their after school programs that are usually looking for ways to entertain the kids. And so even just looking at providing a subscription to just their after school program, or getting them to take a look at some of the extras, I think is a great way to kind of get that conversation started.
Great advice, Alyssa. Thank you. And Katie, what advice would you give?
I would add that for us, we utilized a lot of times the digital, just small staff, not able to get out as much when talking to administrators or different schools. We are lucky for us, we have 2 districts that we work with. So when we're dealing with the elementary schools, actually, I'm sorry, we have 3 because of the other counties totally separate, but we use the digital publication and share little snippets from Kind News from the website. Use that because y'all are very detailed to have the breakdowns and the description of exactly what Kind News is. If you can't get them, a print copy, but being able to give that, for us, we start with the different districts and make sure, hey, this is, again, like Alyssa said, this is free. We want to provide this free of cost to you. And we see this as such an important thing that we will provide. You don't have to do anything else other than give us the permission. And then I will say, for us, we try every year to grow it and to do more and more. So if you're looking also at funding, and we often are always trying to figure out, okay, so if we do this now, how are we going to pay for it in the future? Even grants and working with other civic groups that will help you with the funding so that you can execute it and get it into the hands of more students and teachers. And we do that locally every year for the last couple of years through our local Rotary Club. So that has been a great addition for us to be able to say, hey, we're going to do this, and they help us. We feel it's very important to provide an education program and to not just focus on pet wellness and responsibility for adults. We want to get the kids involved, and we really want to push this with Kind News, and Rotary has helped us. And then we offset the rest through our fundraising and what we earmark it as the foundation to do for our education program.
Wonderful. So we're going to get to questions very soon. I know the question about can I, as an individual, adopt a classroom has come up, and I'm sure funding questions are coming up. So as I mentioned before, a teacher can purchase Kind News for $30 a classroom, but when humane organizations cover more than 11 or more classrooms, the funding required goes down because, of course, you're getting into bulk printing and bulk subscriptions, anywhere from $25 to $21 a classroom. So that's the detail on the very reasonable aspect of Kind News. Anybody can adopt a classroom and provide this to students in their community. And I think at this point, we want to do one more poll. Unless there's anything else Katie and Alyssa have to add on our questions, we're going to do a last poll. We're going to take questions from the attendees and wrap up our webinar today.
Thank you again, Alyssa and Katie, for being our guest panelists today and offering all of your insights on bringing kind news to your communities. And then with that, we've got our last poll question. Again, if you don't already have Mentimeter pulled up on your phone, you can go ahead and scan that QR code or open your browser and enter that code after you visit menti.com. Okay, for our last poll question, we just wanted to get a feel for what topics you would like to see in future webinars from the Red Rover Education staff or team here. So what topics would you like to see? Take a moment there. Okay, looks like funding ideas to cover kind news came through. We have a kind news general informational overview. What else? Ideas for more fun ways to engage children in education.
While these are coming in, I just want to mention we will be sending a thank you email with some resources for printables to use with groups of children, for example. And we're going to send a way to get in touch with us so that you can have one-on-one conversations about this whole piece of identifying classrooms in your community and identifying funding and getting into those more specifics. We really like to do that one-on-one. So look for that to come after the webinar. But Minhan, I'll let you read off some more and we'll look for some questions coming in.
Right, I think our last response here was more first-person examples from teachers. Oh, and then how can I notify teachers in my area about kind news? Great topics, everyone. Thank you.
I was actually going to say, do we want to take some of these, Heidi, to start with for questions that are already related to what we're talking about?
Yeah,
our
sure.
panelists? So what I was gonna ask them to elaborate on, if they could, were some of their funding strategies, because I do get asked that question so often, and I've heard so many different ideas for it. So I just love to hear a little more from each of you on the funding aspect of it, if you could.
I'll go. For us, when we have a couple of larger fundraisers throughout the year. We have a spring Paws and Pearls and a fall Barks and Bourbon, and then we do the random ones, like we actually have a small Panera fundraiser tonight. So when we are raising funds for all the different programs that we have for Beesley, our director and board will just look and kind of earmark. And so we're always setting funds aside to make sure that we are covering the education program. But specifically, I will write grants and try to get extra funding to cover, waiting back from a few to see if it's going to be more out of pocket from what we're doing, or if we're going to have someone else assisting us. The grant writing, I think, is a big one, to be able to say we want to cover X number of subscriptions. And if we are able to do, I wasn't sure of the breakdown. I know for a while we've been getting a discount because of the larger number of subscriptions that we do, that we can do this for X number of dollars and reach kids, and it's not a one-time thing, it's throughout the year. And I think that's another thing to push, is that this isn't something they just see once and it goes away. It is 5 times a year that they're going to get this subscription for their classroom. And having the Rotary support for us is the biggest component, other than what we do. And I know in the past they've done like a barbecue dinner, or they'll do something and they'll specifically say this is for Kind News or our education program in general, which Kind News is the majority of what we do. I don't know if that helps.
A lot. Thank you, Katie. Alyssa, did you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think we included, similar to what Katie was saying, you know, we are not necessarily making big fundraiser events specifically for Kind News. This is something that is just included as a part of our general fundraising. You know, we include it in right alongside when we're talking about fundraising for vaccines and spay and neuters. I mean, we equate it on the same sort of level of importance. And then our budgeting team kind of earmarked certain amounts for it. Being that I'm a little bit more boots on the ground rather than being at the administrative fundraising table, that's my best kind of understanding of how things are. But I do know we've been doing it for a long time, and so it's quite a big priority for our administrative team. And like I said, this is something that we've been doing classroom presentations for quite some time. I mean, I was brought in as a classroom trainer, but since we've been doing the classroom presentations, I think it allows us to stay a little bit more front and center in the community as far as this being a service for us. So it's pretty widely known in our community that this is something that we fundraise for.
Gotcha. Oh, we have one in the chat. Is it possible to receive a few sample magazines to share with reading teachers? Yes, I can answer that one for sure, Sharon. And we are going to be sending out that email we mentioned. You can reply to that one and say, hey, I'm Sharon from the webinar, and I was the one who wanted to get some copies, and we would be very happy to send them out to you. Well, thank you for asking that. We always love to send sample copies to get the word out. And as someone, I think maybe it was Alyssa was saying, it's really effective usually. I had someone submitted ahead of time that I have heard before, and I really wanted to get our panelists' take on. And it was basically about what do you say to those teachers who are concerned that if they have Kind News in their classroom, they're going to kind of be expected to do one more thing, and they already feel really kind of stretched and burnt out, if you ever do get that response. Alyssa, do you have anything to add on that one?
My understanding from the teachers I've spoken with is that because the magazine is a standalone, that they don't necessarily feel like it's an add-on. They feel like it's sort of an extra, which, you know, having something extra as a filler in case you have a substitute, or in case, you know, what you were planning on got derailed for the day, or oh, all of a sudden it's raining and the kids are inside. My understanding is the teachers I've spoken with talk about it as sort of an extra resource to have, rather than something that takes more effort from them. And that's sort of the conversations I've had.
Katie, do you have anything to say on that one?
I'd say it's very similar, because they're getting to give this to their students to read when they have the time, whether it's bad weather or they get done with their test or project or whatever. So no, I haven't heard that one. The teachers that receive it, we're glad that it really doesn't need explanation. Yes, though the teacher guide is there, and it's got the information so they can guide conversations, or they can just let the kids have it, and they can do with it what they want on their own.
There's one that also came in. I'm sorry, Amelia.
No, go ahead.
Came in,
I was just going to say, I'm really glad to hear they're not hearing a lot of that from teachers. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Hetty.
One that came in before the webinar as well. How to get opportunities to speak in classrooms. Alyssa, I know you've been in a lot of classrooms. Do you find that Kind News helps you get in, or are there other ways to get opportunities to speak?
You know, I think in my specific situation, we've been doing it for long enough that Kind News isn't necessarily our in. But what I felt like was this last year, when I reached out to teachers and said, hey, we have this opportunity for you to order from Kind News. Also, would you like me to reach out to you about doing in person? That absolutely, for this year in particular, I used that as an additional way to get into classrooms. And I found I'm presenting to significantly more classrooms this year than I did last year. And I think that that was a big part of it. They got the Kind News email and they went, ooh, I'm supposed to register for this. And then as they were reading through and filling out the questions, went, oh, I can reach out for that. Sure. So they were able to say, yes, reach out to me in the winter. Yes, reach out to me in the spring, or reach out to me. I want to learn more. And that was something that I got back from almost every teacher that subscribed this year or asked for the subscription this year did use that as a, yes, let's talk about that. So I definitely got significantly more contact information from that. I will say for other organizations, this might be useful. I utilized volunteers this year. We had some underage volunteers that couldn't help do a whole lot in our clinic. But what they did do for me was they went through the websites of all the schools in the areas and got upgraded or updated teacher email lists for me. And that was really, really helpful to take off my plate to help with the outreach. So if you're an organization that has volunteers that have the skills to sit around a computer. I mean, it can be younger volunteers or older volunteers. But that was really helpful for me because the teacher contact information changes so frequently that I definitely needed an update. So I think we had a couple of different launch points, but I would say starting the conversation with, hey, are you interested in this resource? And then adding on, hey, by the way, we could come in person or virtually and do this extra thing. I think that helped.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for those tips. I think, is it about time, unless there's any more burning questions, to move on and wrap up? We only have 4 minutes before our webinar ends. So Minhan, you are going to do a quick overview of readers, and we need to present our gift card drawing.
Yes, this will be a very quick overview of our Red River Readers program, which is very much a social and emotional learning program geared for educators and volunteers, such as yourselves on this webinar. And one of the, our primary objectives in the Red River Readers program is to further strengthen the human-animal bond by helping children ages 5 through 11 develop the steps necessary for empathy, recognize human and animal emotions, share emotions, and regulate emotions in order to connect in positive ways with others. And how we do that is through storytelling. So we use animal-themed picture books as well as discussion questions to help students develop those steps necessary for empathy and develop their perspective taking skills, social emotional learning skills, and the like. And then you can learn more. I'm going to pop in our link in the chat, in the Zoom chat box. You can learn more about the Red River Readers program through redrover.org/readers. We'll also include that link in our post-webinar email, as well as the link to take our online course. If you are interested, I help facilitate that course on the back end. So also feel free to reach out to me as well.
Minhan, and do we have a winner of our gift card?
Yeah, so call out a couple names. I don't think the ones that we randomly chose before, so I'm going to go ahead and do a random pick. Another random pick, but congrats to Jody. For being our winner of the $25 PetSmart card drawing. Look for, either if you want to stay, if you're able to stay on for a minute after the end of this webinar to give us our info, or you can look for our email about sending your gift card in the mail, and you can follow up with us via email as well. Congrats, Jody. And thank you all so much for joining us again today and for participating. We really appreciate you all. for being here and taking the time.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, be sure to look out for that email later this week. We'll send out the recording as well as relevant links and resources to spread more humane education resources in your community. Have a great afternoon and day, everyone. Thank you. You can also connect with us via social media at Kind News Magazine. We have a Facebook and Instagram. Thanks again.